People don't make albums anymore. They don't make albums. They just try to sell a bunch of little quick singles, and they burn out, and they put out a new one, and they burn out, and they put out a new one. People don't even listen to a body of work anymore.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know this B, it's your girl KylerB coming at you with a new video. Today we're going to be talking about Queen Charlotte, a Bridgerton story, and it's basically a prequel to the first 2 seasons of Bridgerton, or the Bridgerton series. This show is on Netflix, so if you want to check it out, it's only 6 episodes, which should be longer. Let that point stays true. Like, it should be longer. That's how good it was. So like I was saying, this is a prequel to Bridgerton. Basically, this show is a story building, just the foundation of what Bridgerton is today, or into their time period. And I would say Miss Shonda Rhimes, she has a lot of flaws, but that pen game, don't mess with it. Don't mess with that pen game, okay? Don't mess with it. Because she really did put that pen to work on this 6-episode series. So, before we even get into this, this is a Let's Talk About It series, part of my Let's Talk About It, series that I, do whenever I'm talking about a show. And, yeah, if you have not watched my latest 3 videos, you can go watch my New Edition concert video, my Janet Jackson concert video, or my Love is Blind review and review video. Also, you can check out my social medias that are going to be linked right above here. And let's get right into the video. So, Queen Charlotte, Bridgerton story. I would say first and foremost, the actors, that they got, the casting that they got to play the younger versions of Queen Charlotte, the younger version of King George, the younger version of Lady Danbury. They knew what they were doing in that, casting room. So let's talk about the, how it basically sets up. Queen Charlotte was basically, sold from her home in Germany to, I guess, make a better alliance with England, with her country, and the life as she knows it is over. Like, she does not know that, I don't think she ever stepped foot back in Germany since, being married to George. So the life as she knows it is over. So, and she does not know the foods, the customs, anything really about England. Like, she never even visited England to say, like, oh, I know a little something here or there. No. So to travel from Germany to England is just like bizarre. And the fact that they actually did keep the accuracy, the historical accuracy, is that she traveled from Germany to England, and on the same day that she arrived to England, that was her wedding day to King George. So that's the historical accuracy, because when in the show, it's like she traveled all the way to England, and then on the same day, they were like, okay, put your dress on, you're getting married to George. Like, what? Like, there was no time, there was no courtship, there was like, okay, let me see if you actually like him. Like, you just never met the king. Like, you just never met him. There was no, like, getting to know. It was just like, okay, you're just basically signed away to marry this strange guy that she never met. There was no courting at all. And I'm just like, has courting never been a thing during this time? Because I'm just like, we see it all throughout Bridgerton, where we see, the people, the guys court the girls and have suitors and whatnot. And you're like, okay, but like, they didn't even talk. They didn't even have like a hello meeting. So I was just like, what is going on? What is going on? And before I even talk about the romance or the love between King George and Queen Charlotte, we gotta talk about the foundation. they call the marriage between King George and Queen Charlotte the Great Experiment. Basically, since there was, I guess, never been mixing of races before, especially on the scale of a king and a queen, they were like, okay, this has really never been done before. With their marriage, they for the first time they asked people who look like Charlotte or people of color to be invited to the royal wedding. So that was the first time of actually mixing and mingling of the races. So with that, because the marriage between Charlotte and George was basically showing it's all on a different scale, was basically making an alliance between Germany and England. Obviously, the marriage also between Charlotte and George was basically an alliance between black and white people. They invited people, like I said, that looked like Charlotte to the wedding, their first mixing and mingling event. Obviously, the Queen Mother, who is Princess Augusta, decided to give, the people of Charlotte's court titles. So it was the first time, people that looked like Charlotte was getting titles. So Lord Danbury and Lady Agatha Danbury did not get their titles until the marriage between Charlotte and George. Let that be known. So, with that being said, they never had these titles before. So having a title means that they were a respectable person in society. Does it not? So, obviously, with that being said, Lord Danbury dies, and, he has the title of Lord Danbury. So Agatha's like, okay, well then the next in line is my son. He should get the titles. But with that being said, since there is no precedent of what happens next in line, nobody knows, what goes on, because there needs to be a precedent that they follow that, can be had of what they do in these situations. Lord Danbury was the first to die with a title. They were like, what goes on? So everybody in the town that's obviously, black, came to Lady Danbury's house. They asked her, and she was like, she doesn't know. But because she was good friends with Charlotte, Queen Charlotte at that, and she was in talks with Princess Augusta, having her little tea time, they were like, okay, can you go ask on my behalf? So, just, obviously, with that being said, she, Lady Danbury, she's fighting on her son's behalf so that he can inherit the title of Lord Danbury, so that he is not growing in poverty. He's not growing up in poverty, because obviously during these times, they don't really respect the woman to be the head of household in these situations. It always has to be a male patriarch to be the head of the household, even if the patriarch, is not even in the same country. But if you have somebody who's like from across the sea and he's a part of your bloodline, a part of your family, he has to come all the way over and basically, control the funds of the family, basically like the Featheringtons if you watch season 2. So basically that's the precedent of Bridgerton, So basically, at the end of the season, Queen Charlotte goes up to Agatha and is like, you should have asked me from the get-go to help you with the situation, to help you get your son's inheritance. Go to him. You shouldn't be, going back and forth with Princess Augusta, because I could have handled that. But, yeah, so basically, this is a story building where, basically, Queen Charlotte and Lady Danbury basically allowed for the mixing and mingling of people in England and for people of color to have their titles. So basically it's a big situation, because you're just like, why is Lady Danbury here? Because you would think that they've been fast friends from the get-go, but no. They were only friends because, obviously they got invited to the wedding, and Lady Danbury decided to go out of her way and actually be like, okay, if you need any help, you can always call on me. And, as Charlotte, who's a stranger in this strange country who doesn't know anybody, she's like, okay, well, I'm going to go call on you when things are going, tough between her and George. So, that's basically the precedent that sets the story. Now let's get back to George and Charlotte, okay? So George and Charlotte, they meet on the first time at the day of the wedding. Obviously, this is really actually a historical accuracy, is that Charlotte actually does come from Germany and arrived to England the same day as the wedding. And I don't think she ever met George. So that's actually the historical accuracy that they kept in the show. So on their first time, the meeting, they had a little banter back and forth, and everybody was tuned into their seats because they're like, okay, a little charmer. End of episode 1, we're all like, okay, what just happened here? We were just getting charmed, and then next thing you know, you're telling me we have to live in different houses. And I'm just like, I'm just like, did we get bamboozled? Like, did Charlotte and the viewers get bamboozled? What is going on? We come to find out later on that King George is, he has an illness. He has an illness, and in actual history, he's the King George who is quote unquote the madman. The madman king, okay? So with that being said, Charlotte is out of the loop. She does not know what George has. Nobody ever told her. She's out of the loop. Brimsley, at the other hand, he doesn't even know anything either. So we come to find out that Brimsley and Reynolds have a little something. At the end of the day, so we see later on that Brimsley is on Queen Charlotte's behalf, and he's trying to find out the information too, because he's like, why is King George not interacting with his wife? Like, what's going on here? Reynolds is being having discretion for the king, like he can't say too much. You find out that the mother, which is the King George mother, is basically told him to keep his sickness, his secrets, a secret, and not tell his wife. And it was just like Queen Charlotte was just supposed to be happy that she was able to marry somebody of King George. So I'm just like, she wasn't really, even though she's a queen, she wasn't treated as a person, and by the princess. So we come to find out later on that, Queen Charlotte is like, what? That's King George is my husband, so I'm gonna do as I say, please. He finds out about King George's illness throughout episode 3, and she does not know exactly what's going on. She actually basically later lets out her frustrations to the mother. Basically is like, why didn't you tell me? You basically lied to me, allowed me to marry some strange man in a strange country, and to come to find out that strange man in a strange country is with an illness. And back then, that is like, a strange man with an illness is like very much a taboo. So just like, it's bad enough that, you're treating me like as I'm lucky, but I have to deal with all this. Obviously, Charlotte is with child, so, obviously she was letting out her frustrations, but George overhears, and he decides to go back to his treatment from the doctor. The doctor is the worst doctor, I believe. At the day when we saw that on the day of the wedding where he slapped George and his guardsman was trying to behead him, I was like, you know what? The guardsman should have beheaded. Like, I don't know, they had that right idea, because we come to find out he gets basically tortured by the doctor, and all in the name of being a remedy or trying to help him in his sanity. You know what I'm saying? The doctor was allowing him to eat slop, forcing him to eat slop, basically calling him boy and all that stuff, and treating him like he's less than. Like, he's already a king, but like less than a human being. Like, the doctor was just treating him like whatever. And I think he was basically enjoying the fact of doing that to the king, or being able to defile the king, basically. Somebody of his stature is able to, talk down to a king and stuff like that without getting, punished, because those the things that he did to the king, that could have easily been that could have been like the end of his life, okay, for real. Because what he was doing to the king, people get beheaded for less. People get beheaded for less. And when Charlotte was like, you're lucky you're only getting dismissed. You're lucky. You should be lucky you should have a life, like, after this. Like, because people get beheaded for less, okay? Less. So obviously, Charlotte ends up saving the day, dismisses the physician, the doctor, and, basically says that she's going to handle the caring and taking care of the king. Which she does, which, in spite of her doing that, trying to take care of the king and making sure that he's okay, maybe she may have neglected the nurturing of her kids. She always been queen to them, but maybe she never gave them a nurturing, caring that she would give King George, which was later discussed.
The only heir to the throne is dead.
Bombastic side-eye.
Sorrows, prayers. We had one heir, one royal, and she is gone.
Criminal, offensive.
Sorrows, prayers.
The love confession in episode 6, we ate it up. Okay, we ate it up. Episode 2 or episode 3, I think even days, we ate it up. Because what? We ate it up. When we saw in episode 4, he actually came over to Buckingham House and watched her play chess. We ate it up. When she was so infatuated by the king, and she was trying to figure out, does he really go out to farm? We ate it up. Okay, like Shonda was in her bag. Okay. Obviously we see Lady Danbury, who I guess wasn't fortunate enough to, be married or like the person that she's married to, because obviously when she was watching Charlotte basically be infatuated, or basically just care about to see if King George liked her or not, and she's like, you're a queen, you should be caring about your people, you shouldn't be caring about if your husband likes you or not. Because obviously Danbury, we find out her story that she was basically sold since the age of 3 to be married to Herman Danbury and raised to be his wife. And then she had 4 kids, and then basically she was just waiting it out until Danbury kicks the bucket, basically. And it was very funny when he does kick the bucket and she comes out and Curl, her basically maid, her handmaiden, or her maid, basically, they basically start to celebrate in the hallway, and she's like, he's gone, you don't need to do any more hot water baths for me, like, he's gone. And then they go back into the room and she's like pretending to be sad about the situation. And I'm just like, bro, that was actually very hilarious, because she was actually really waiting it out. She was just like, he's an old man, and let me see how much energy he got. Like, I'll be, Cora on the other hand, like, really ride or die, over here with the hot water already. I think there was a little discourse about how Shonda has depicted, Lord Danbury or Herman Danbury, because obviously he looks how he's look, and how he looks is a bit but I feel like it's intentional. It actually fits the description. The guy was an old English man who basically, I guess, wants to be accepted in society. obviously there's times where you think, Agatha Danbury feels compassion for her husband when he talks about, wanting to be accepted in society, wanting to be basically treated as equals amongst the other people in town. And I feel like, at the end of the day, even though this man is basically the worst person that she ever met, he does have a point of wanting to be treated as a human being in society. So she basically negotiates and fights for him to be able to go out to hunts, to able to be in the gentleman's club as long as with the other people of the town, advocates for him to have, land and title, or, and stuff like that, when she's speaking with the Princess Augusta. So I'm just like, she has a point, even, I mean, you would think at times that she really does care about the Herman Danbury, but I just feel like, I think she was just really understanding the fact that he does need to be treated as a person, even though he's the worst person. He does need to be treated as a person. And then it was just like, even though when she's just like, when she finally gets the ball going and, the king and queen show up to the ball and he's over here saying like, oh, I did it, and taking all the credit that Lady Danbury did. And it was just like, we have a good moment once and two times, and he ends up ruining it and being like, oh, I did it, or be quiet, lady, and woman, and you're nothing, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, wow. Like, she, despite everything that he's doing to her, she's still trying to fight for the equal rights of, her and the other black citizens of the town, and people of color of the town. Because I'm just like, you got this person basically, they're, berating you, and, but then he has his times where he's just like, oh, I just want to be treated as an equal, and you're just like, you know what, he has a point. Even though he's the worst person, he has a point. And we see that, after Lady Danbury finally gets her freedom from Herman Danbury, she does not know what to do with that said freedom. So long she's been, trained and, learned to be basically just a wife and a person who gives birth to kids. She doesn't know how to be her own person. So as a widow, she finally, ends up being her own person when she, gets infatuated with Lord Ledger, who ends up being Violet's father. And we see in the present time when Violet is like discussing, her trying to, at this point in time of her life, that she may want to have another love interest of her own, even after Edmund is gone, as she asks Lady Danbury about, if she ever had that situation. And, when Lady Danbury talks and, and she discusses situations like that, and she sees that Lady Danbury has a birthday hat that her father makes on the top of her dresser, she's just like, so did you have an affair with my father while he was married to my mother? Like, let me, explain yourself. And, Lady Danbury, as discreet as she is, she never really says that she does, but obviously Violet could put two and two together, But I'm just like, if you know who your mother was, you know how prejudiced she was. The same lady that your mother did not want to go to her ball until the king and queen was going to it, did not want you to say hi to, ends up having an affair with your father, with her husband, with your father. Like, that's kind of like, well, messy. Very messy, but I'm just like, maybe a little, gotta keep, gotta be very good to people, because it's gonna come back to bite. Because I'm just like, the same lady, I feel like, but Lord Ledger, if Lord Ledger could have, said something, divorce his wife, but I don't think he could have. He probably would have to be with Lady Danbury. Because obviously he didn't really like her as much, because obviously when she was like, oh, don't go to the party, or don't go to the ball, or don't do this or don't do that, he would always just like look at Violet and he's just like, yeah, you can do it. You know what I'm saying? So we're just like, okay. Like, it was actually good for Lady Danbury to actually just want to like end the situation, because how are you gonna bring your daughter up to the little spot that you and the person that you're having an affair with, like, you just basically ruined the whole situation. So she obviously was like, yeah, after I saw your daughter, she was just like, yeah, that's it. That's the end of this whole rendezvous situation that we're having. And because to what end was this gonna end? I mean, unless you were gonna drop your wife and marry Lady Danbury, this would have to put an end to the situation. They try to make Agatha and Adolphus, the Queen's brother, have like some type of relationship, and she basically turned it down but I feel like it was pretty smart on Agatha's part to turn it down, because if she decides to marry the Queen's brother, that's good for her and her family, but that does not set precedent of what happens next to the people of color. Like, what happens when the male figure, the male, patriarch or whatever, dies from the family? Where does the inheritance go down? Doesn't it go down to the next in line, which is your son? Because if she did marry Adolphus, it would have been great for her, but everybody who was asking and basically waiting on her to see what happens, their lives would not be any different from what it was. Like I said, Shonda Rhimes' pen was penning. She has the flaws that she has. She got her flaws, okay, but you can't dispute that pen, because she will make a good show, okay? She will make a good relationship, a good pairing. Like, hello, the whole full circle moment of George asking Charlotte, you did not go over the wall, and Charlotte basically saying, no, George, I did not go over the wall. Like, full circle. Brimsley, he was just a really good character. The fact that, he was feeling the same type of, he grew fond to Charlotte, and, feeling, obviously him being his foot soldier, or, her foot soldier, her footman, I don't really know, but he's always with her by all times, 5 paces behind. The scene where she's walking through the hallway with child and, crying, and he reaches his hand out to try to like comfort her, and obviously he's 5 paces behind, he can't really do that, and it's just like he's just feeling the pain that Charlotte's going through. She's a stranger in a strange country, married to this guy who's estranged to her at this time, and she doesn't know what's going on until she later finds out that her husband is trying to get better for her with this strange doctor, and it's just like, all this time, I think Charlotte was the remedy. When he's with Charlotte, he's okay, his nerves are calm, what I'm saying? And it's just like, I think there was a talk about Charlotte being frozen in time. That's the reason why her apparel, her dresses, what she wears is like maybe not dated with what, the present day Bridgerton people wear. What I'm saying? Because she's frozen in time. Brimsley is like, your daughters can't leave you. Your daughters can't leave you frozen in time, because King George, his safe place, his safe haven is with Charlotte during the time, I guess, the good years of their marriage, and she, obviously she may or may have neglected her kids on the betterment of her husband to make sure her husband's fine. She wakes up in a panic asking Brimsley, is he okay? Is he, is he gone? What I'm saying? And it's just like, she's just really trying to make sure her husband's okay. Like she said, she will basically stand between heaven and earth for her husband, King George. And it's just very sweet to see, their love story. Just like they had their 15 kids, they did have their 15 kids. It was kind of interesting to see that, they danced and whatever. And at the end of episode 6, she's with her second child. And I'm just like, well, you just had King George the Fourth, and now you're about to have a second child. But I mean, like, they could have had another season if they wanted to. Because I know Shonda said they could have had another season. Another season not out of the question, because it's not out of the question. You have 15 kids. You could have showed the storyline, the timeline between you and them 15 kids. What's going on? In current day Bridgerton, we only see 13. So I don't know if 2 of them passed or what happened between them. But, yeah. So, but Bridgerton, Queen Charlotte, a Bridgerton story, yeah, that was some good TV. That was some good TV. Queen Charlotte was some good TV. Shonda Rhimes, she may be a warrior of Love v. Virginia. She is to make sure that Love v. Virginia was in effect. She was there on that day, but she makes her good TV, okay? At the end of the day, the final things I would have to say is the Doctor needs to be gone. Lady Danbury endured a lot. If they want to do a story between Edmund and Violet, they can. I mean, they can. But I feel like if they want, they could do a backstory within a current season of Bridgerton. Because Edmund is a Bridgerton. To make it, Edmund is a Bridgerton. So they don't really need to do a spin-off series between, or like a little whatever, between Violet and Edmund. They just could basically make a backstory in one of the episodes of Bridgerton, because just like how they did in season 2 when they showed how Edmund died from a bee, they can do a backstory of just like how they did that. They could do a backstory between how Violet and Edmund, met each other and were able to have their 8 kids, together before he died. Because I'm just like, the story's called Bridgerton. Obviously, Edmund Bridgerton is a Bridgerton. So, with that being said, there's no need to make another separate show. I say they could have a story within the actual Bridgerton series. But the thing about it, Queen Charlotte and King George, their story or whatever, is not a Bridgerton story. Well, I mean, it is a Bridgerton story, but it's not really, they don't have the Bridgerton name. So, you know what I'm saying? So there's no need to make another, something like Queen Charlotte. They can just have it within the regular Bridgerton series, because it is a part of the Bridgerton family. But yeah, it was very good. If you want to watch this series, again, it is on Netflix. You can go check it out. It's really good. Yeah, I was tuned in from the start to the finish, and 6 episodes was not enough. At the end of the day, I do not know how Colin and Penelope is going to follow up between Charlotte and George's story, but they can try. But I don't think they will. I don't know about that, but they can try. But anyway, guys, if you like this video, like the video, comment down below, let me know your thoughts, comments, concerns, and unsubscribe to my channel. Subscribe. Anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. Peace.